Welcome back, y'all. So today I'm going to be making an update video about 1 year, should be exactly about 1 year by the time this video gets posted, on my Proform Brushless Fans. If you've been following along, or if you haven't, you might notice a couple little differences in that one over there. So I'll actually be taking these fans apart for the most part, and I'm gonna dissect them a little bit so you can see what they look like, and I'll give you an update on how they're performing still. Let's get this thing up on the ramps. So as you can see, I had to modify this guy a little bit because I had a stick, and the stick didn't look very threatening. Before I hit it, it was only probably about 6 inches long. It was a little fat though, but apparently it was. So I'll show you in a minute the housing that I busted. Well, anyways, it hit my skid plate up there and bounced off of it, and it actually bent the shroud up here, and it took the fan out, knocked the blades off this one, and knocked blades off that one, and put a hole in the radiator, which we fixed, and everything's working. But I Frankenstein my fans back together with a cheap set of spow fans that I had. So we're gonna get to why we're taking them off and how we're gonna fix them here in a second. So it's simple enough. Just, obviously it's just fans. I got them. I got connectors on here. I'm gonna unplug them and unbolt them, and we'll get inside and take a further look. All right. So as you can see here, this is the aftermath of me hitting that stick in the road. Problems of having a rear mount radiator. Those are the blades, and that's the center. And yeah, it popped it right there, which it knocked all the blades off of this one, and I was doing a little mini mountain run, so shifting back and forth, I guess those blades went across the shroud, and I hit it, and it went into the other fan, and that knocked a few blades off that one and poked a hole in the radiator, which I fixed. So I just had to get the car back together. You can see that this stands off for the brushless motor. The spow fans that I took apart is not like that. So what I did was I found some riv nuts and spaced them out and put some deck screws in there and cut the ends off. So Proform was nice enough. I called them up, and I mean, they're a really big company. The fact that you can call them and like a real person answers, like that's there at that company, it's really cool, and the simple fact that like they don't need my business, like it's a drop in the bucket to to what they do, but they have just gone above and beyond to help me out. So basically I talked to Dennis up there, shout out Dennis, and I was like, man, I really can't afford to buy another set of fans. I was like, do you have any replacement parts lying around? And he said, give me a second, let me dig around, let me see what I can find. Basically, long story short, he sent me not one, but two replacement housings with little snap rings and two blades for the low price of $3.99. So that's awesome. Shout out to you, Dennis. You are the man. True hot rodders, helping other hot rodders get their stuff back on the road. So with that being said, I'm going to put these fans back together the way they're supposed to be together, and not like that. First off, if you ever end up in my situation, which hopefully you won't, 9 times out of 10 you probably won't, because your fans are going to be protected in the engine bay, but you have to have yourself a very small set of snap ring pliers, which fortunately I do manual transmissions, and I have a ton of different size snap ring pliers. So I'm going to grab these little small guys right here. We're going to pop the snap ring off. So like I said, I fixed this with a set of cheap spow fans, but with that being said, everything is not perfectly as it should be. So you can hear it kind of rubs a little bit. It doesn't stand off at the right height, but what I did, I guess it moved down. I put the snap ring on, and I just pulled it up to the snap ring, and it spun a little more freely. So it's kind of hard to do this with one hand. I'll probably have to put the camera down, but basically I just rock it back and forth until I can get it off. The Proform fans, they were on a lot tighter. I took a punch in the middle with the hammer and just slowly tapped on it and got it to come up. But these are pretty easy to get on and off, because like I said, it's not perfect, but to get it back on the road is what I did. So let me wiggle this thing off real fast. There we go. So you see how everything's held in there, and the differences between these, the Proform fans actually have metal on the inside, so that's a little bit better, and you can see the height's a little different from those, which we're not going to talk about these much. This was just to get me through. I'm not going to say bad things about them, but they weren't up to the task for what I needed on my car. Pretty simple, and now we're just going to take the screws out of here and get this motor off. So I'm not going to split this case and take this apart, but I'm going to try and see if I can dig up some pictures. On the first set that I had, when Proform initially released these, and there was that one issue that they ended up resolving, I took them apart and looked at it, and I'm saying, like, inside this thing, it looks legit. I really hope I can find some pictures. I should have some saved, and I'll throw them up there on the screen if I do find them. But, I mean, this thing, I took it apart, I was like, well, maybe I can figure something out with it. And I looked at it, I was like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. But everything, all the circuit boards are, like, encased in, I don't even know what to call it, is glue or whatever it is, some type of silicone or something like that. And the motors are really beefy and all that. But anyways, I'm not going to take it apart. I'm just going to put it back on. So it's just as simple as that. You know, parts that are made to work with themselves because that's how they were designed. And I'm going to screw this guy back together and get the blades on, and then we'll get them back in the car, and we'll get some real live data going on and let you see how well they work. And just like that, it's back the way it should be. So simple enough. 4 screws there, the little washer and the snap ring, and I like to take some pliers and squeeze on these guys a little bit before I put them on, because with the smaller ones, the thin stuff, they like to stretch out, and just ever so gently start them and kind of roll it on there with the snap ring pliers and make sure it's nice and tight. So that's not going anywhere. It's going to be good to go. And you can hear the motor on that thing. I mean, God, you can hear the difference between the non-brushed. Oh, that doesn't sound great, actually. And I might be pushed down a little bit from where I had to persuade the motors off of the other fans. But regardless, we're not talking about those today anyways. But yeah, we're good to go on that. So I'm going to swap the blade on the other one and get them back in the car. Another thing I forgot to give credit to in my last video, when we lost the belt because the pulley broke, the idler pulley broke, and it overheated, and the welds on the factory tank up on my swirl pod up there, they split. This JB Weld held. That's where the fan blade poked a hole in the radiator, and I went through a whole deal of trying to fix it and all that, and we tried to TIG weld it. I ended up JB welding it, and that held all the pressure when that aluminum tank literally split its welds. I don't know. Shout out to JB Weld. No sponsorship here, but you know, let's get these fans back on real fast. One more thing that I want to add before I get out from under here. A lot of people have asked me, how do I have them wired up? And how can you wire them up? So you've got your power, your ground, and then you have your signal wire, I guess you would call it. So if the way I have them run is just wide open. So I take this green wire here and I just run it with the positive wire, 12-volt feed, and it just runs them wide open. So they self-ramp though, so it doesn't spike your amperage and all that, and they slowly ramp up. And I just have mine wide open because it just works well that way. But they are PWM capable, but it has to be a positive output PWM trigger. So I'm on Holley Terminator X, which only does ground output PWM. So if you wanted to set them up with a solid state relay, you could do it that way. I just haven't made it that far. I don't really have a need for it. I would like to try it at some point, you know, just to see, and I can control the speed and all that based off the coolant temperature, but honestly I really don't need it. I have them cutting on at 190 and cutting off at 189, and it kind of just sweeps back and forth from 185 to 195 and back up and down, and it works fine for me. So but that is they are PWM capable as long as it's above 110 hertz, if I'm not mistaken. And Proform does sell a frequency generator if you don't have a standalone ECU and you just want to set them at a certain speed level or duty cycle, as you would call it. I do know that I've heard one person using it on a stock GM LS computer, so I know there is a possibility to use them on a stock computer. I'm not 100% sure on that, so I can't give you a ton of information, but I have heard of somebody doing that before. Let's see if we can get this thing up to temp and get a little cruising around before it starts raining. And I'm gonna get some footage with the 360 camera over there, and I'll find a spot where I can be loud and let it idle, and we'll go over a little bit more. Well, maybe we won't get 360 footage because it's not working right now. So let's get a little pull. The fans came on and kicked off. They're at 185 right now. Let's make a little pull. It's gonna be a little challenging here, but we'll do the best we can. Just cut back off. I don't know, I got the thing working. We'll try to get a shot with that here shortly. But so we're at 188 now. It'll slowly come back up. Man, listen to that thing chop. And these things are loud. Also, I have the 14-inch models, by the way, just because I think I forgot to mention that on my last video. But when these things are on, these are the straight blades. They're loud, which does not bother me whatsoever. But if you want a little bit of a quieter fan, they do have an S-curve, S-blade as well. And like this thing cools it just cools so well. Like it takes a while for them to kick back on. Let's see what we're at. All right, we're at 190 now, so they're ramping up as we speak. They move a ton of air. Oh my God, they work so well. So yeah, and we're at 193. It's dropping. It only hits 195 and drops back down. When I do a pull like at the drag strip, it'll hit about 200, and then it stops there, 199 sometimes, and then it'll come back down, and it just does its thing. So yeah, watch, they're about to kick back off again. As soon as they hit 189, they will be off. And it's tickling it. There it goes right there, 189, and they're off. Simple as that. So, dude, slimline, brushless, moves tons of air. Great. I call it a budget fan, but it's not cheap. You know, the price is cheap. These are 160 bucks each, if I'm not mistaken, right now, and they just work. So let's see if we can get a little bit of 360 footage on the way back, and if the camera works right, we'll throw that in there. So in conclusion, go buy yourself a set of Proform Brushless fans, dude. These things are the answer for any cooling issues you're having. So mine, with the rear mount radiator setup, is that there's no real airflow on the front side of the radiator, whatever you want to call it, in this position. And it cooled all right, but anything over 60 miles an hour, all the air and the turbulence, or whatever you want to call it, was just cutting straight by the fans, and the radiator and the fans I had were not capable of pulling enough air down, which these do. I'm not going to say exactly how fast I've got it to on the highway, but it works at no matter what speed you have it at. So it's been roughly a year now since I've had them on the car, and they fixed the issue. So initially there was a thermal safety issue in the hardware or firmware, whatever you call it, and it would cut off around 180 degrees. Well, they got that fixed, and they've been working flawlessly ever since. That's my Proform Brushless Fan update video, and if you want to see more Turbo LS Nitrous, which we weren't running that a minute ago, Miata stuff, content, drop a sub, drop a like, drop a comment, tell me what you think about this. And as always, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for subscribing, we'll see you in the next one. Later, y'all.